I'm calling this meeting to order and the time is 5:01 p.m. There are no additions to the agenda that I'm aware of. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest or the nature thereof from the members of council? Seeing none, okay. I actually do have a couple of short announcements before we begin the regular meeting. Tomorrow, Wednesday, November the 15th, 2023, is marked as Wear Purple Day, a day to shine a light on the abuse of women. This color was chosen as it stands for courage, survival, and honor, and has now become the symbol of the fight to end the abuse of women in all its forms. This evening, in order to stand in support and solidarity with women and girls who have experienced violence in their homes, schools, and workplaces, we've chosen to wear something purple. We all have women in our lives, our mothers, grandmothers, sisters, aunts, friends, and each one deserves respect and dignity and the ability to live their lives without fear of violence. So do your part tomorrow and think about wearing something purple in honor of women. Then the next one is this week, November the 16th to be exact, marks council's inauguration as this particular group of people. It's the day we were officially sworn into our new roles. So at this time, I'd like to take a moment to state how grateful I am to the community for their confidence in us and giving us this opportunity. But moreover, I want to say that although this year has been a tremendous learning experience with some ups and some downs, I feel very fortunate to have such a talented group share this horseshoe with me. I value your support, your thoughts, your ideas, and your contributions to the residents of Thames Centre, and eagerly look forward to our second year. So congratulations for making it through year one, onward and upward to year two. Thank you. So we will begin with the first presentation, which is regarding our strategic plan final draft. I believe the presenter, Ken Hewitt, is coming in by Zoom, Jana?
Yes, Your Worship. I'm just moving him and allowing him to talk if he can unmute. Oh, he's coming over. There we go. And he disappeared. Your Worship, he has disappeared. Oh, we're back.
Can you hear me?
He's allowed to speak now if he can.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello?
We can hear you, Ken. Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, it's the internet might be a little spotty, so I can't see you, but I'm hoping I'm speaking to council and
Yes,
those
you are.
watching. Okay, great. So I'm basically here to answer questions. If there are any questions of council or staff, we've gone through the presentations. As you know, we did this a couple of weeks ago with council. We've done a couple of public meetings, open houses, as well as we've had the opportunity to have questions from staff as well as council over the past several months. So the recommendation in front of you really is a synopsis of everything that we were able to bring forward together, and I'm here to answer some questions if there are any.
Thanks, Ken. I'll turn it over to council members to ask their questions or make whatever comments they want. So where would we like to start? Deputy Mayor Smybert, go ahead.
Great, thank you, and thanks, Ken, for the draft that is before us. I know, Ken, that I reached out to you. I just had a couple of, I guess, some more comments as opposed to questions. I'm glad that we had the opportunity to get or solicit feedback from the community, because that's obviously very important to us. And I guess I was hoping that we as a council would spend a bit more time kind of addressing and identifying the goals that we want to see moving forward over the next 3 years. I'm not sure that this particular document has captured all that, but I think it's a really good start anyway. The comments I had relate to the fact that I think there are really specific recommendations contained in the strategic plan. And I guess I was hoping that there would be more structure in terms of what the priorities are with the goals that were a bit more general and kind of open-ended, so that staff could identify what tactics could be put into place to achieve those goals. And then also I wanted to see some type of a measurement tool to be able to measure how well we've moved towards attaining that goal. There are a couple of priorities or recommendations dealing with the county that I think we really should reconsider. I'm not in favor of taking a look at removing the planning services from the county. I'm not sure that's what is initiated by that particular recommendation, but it sounds like that. So I just wanted to see if we could kind of wordsmith that a little bit. Also the item in terms of uploading water wastewater services is something that again, I think is a bit really specific. I'm not sure that is attainable. If the wording change is changed so that it looks at effectiveness and efficiency in delivering water and wastewater services, then that's something I can see and I can support. I just, again, I think just in reading the strat plan, again, the recommendations are, in my opinion only, that I feel they're a little specific. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment? Go ahead, Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Your Worship. Hello, Ken, wherever in the world you may be. Just to piggyback on what the deputy mayor said here, I do think this is a great foundation for the council to work with. Strategic plans that I've worked on in the past have been a bit more broad. So I do think that there's specific recommendations in here that I think we can broaden to not necessarily take out the specific that say the community has given us on feedback, but to actually allow more opportunities to actually filter underneath the strategic pillars that have been put in place. So a few things before I get onto the pillars specifically is I do want to implement a strategic statement or vision for council. We have a really good tagline here in Thames Centre, together we grow. Perhaps something can be incorporated with that, just to kind of capture what it is we as council and a community and the strategic plan really feels about Thames Centre. Heading into the pillars, I think the 4 named here capture a lot of the feedback received from community. However, there was 2 specific areas that I don't believe were captured that I would like to see added. The first being kind of fiscal responsibility, and the second being environment. I don't know whether we can kind of package those together under sustainability, but just focusing on those 2 items, as I feel like they were kind of missed in the plan as a whole. Yeah, overall, I think we're heading in the right direction, but I do feel as though we need to kind of prioritize, high level 5-year, 10-year plans to execute some of these items, specifically to the planning pieces, or I wouldn't say planning, especially to the pieces that are already in here, such as the master's facility plan, as well as the CIP. Sorry, just going through my notes so I don't miss anything here. I think we're good. I think that captures all of my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crockett. Anyone else? Councillor Lockie, go ahead.
I just have a question. with respect to like with recreation, there's a mention that it wants that we should focus on youth and seniors. And, you know, when you look at the demographics, more than half of the people are between ages 15 to 59. So I'm just curious the rationale why we would want to focus on youth and seniors. Like we do have a good seniors complex already. We have a lot of amazing youth programs.
Ken, would you like to respond to that at this point, or are you just taking notes, or?
I'm okay to respond to the questions, or I can wait for council to go through, and then we can I can come back with some comments as well, and it's up to you, your worship.
Maybe if you could answer this particular question now, and then we'll move on to Councillor Heeman.
Yeah, with respect to recreation, I mean, we took the feedback and data that was received from the surveys, and yeah, again, when we went through this process, and you'll recall that you know, the numbers that came in were somewhere in the area of about 700 respondents. Doesn't necessarily always mean we capture everybody that exists, obviously, in the community, but we try and get a good cross section. And the ones that did respond, you know, sort of gave us the data that would suggest that you know, recreation in the youth area, as well as you know, some lacking recreation in our seniors. And again, I think that's a sort of consistent amongst a lot of players, a lot of places, looking for more walking trails, looking for, you know, pickleball kind of you know, courts and things that are becoming more prevalent today than what we've seen in the past with tennis courts or indoor pools and other avenues. So it doesn't necessarily, you know, take away from the need that's in between that age group that was mentioned by the councillor, but it does say that there's, you know, suggestion, or at least a perception, there's a lack of representation in the youth area or category, as well as the seniors.
Thanks very much. Any follow-up?
No, I appreciate the explanation. The other thing I think it might be nice to see is, you know, where this plan is really consistent with the county's plan, because, you know, we work together in a lot of things. So I think it would be nice to kind of see, you know, kind of have it more clear where it's consistent and how our objectives are aligned with Middlesex County.
Yeah, no, I think it's a fair comment, and you know, this is a working doc. It's a start. I think it's a very good start. It's also an opportunity for yourselves as councillors to be able to kind of look and say, what are the achievables? What can we, you know, put to paper and possibly be able to measure in the next with this term of council, as well as possibly the next term, and knowing that you're not going to get them all. I mean, we had 4 pillars, and out of the 4 pillars, we had over 32 recommendations, and I know the comments would suggest some are specific, so to speak. I think it's intended to really give yourselves as councillors a chance to say, okay, what are the achievables that we can bring back to staff now and say, this is what we'd like to see in the next coming budget. This is what we'd like to see maybe in the next 3, 4, 5 years. And it's not to suggest that all of them are going to happen in the next year, or maybe some might not see the light of day, but it's really giving you, I think, food for thought and an opportunity to move forward.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ken. Anyone else? Councillor Heeman?
Yes, I think this is a good report. I agree with the comments made that there may be some room for tailoring. I just want to say, though, that this being the second strategic plan I've been through, I feel like the consultation was adequate and a little bit more rigorous than it has been in the past. I think it's important to remember also that when we were presented with this process, that we were presented with SMART goals, right? That was the framework in which we would be having outcomes presented to us, and that they were goals. You know, SMART goals are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. And when you look at the fact that we only have 3 years left, as the mayor has pointed out, 3 years goes by very quickly. And I think that, you know, those five things represented by the SMART acronym are important for us to look at. We have very skilled staff who exercise their judgment and their statutory requirements under the Municipal Act and under the municipality every day. And I think that this is our opportunity to highlight some additional goals that we can all work together to advance. In terms of measurement tools, there is the provision for key performance indicators, which will allow for ongoing and continual evaluation of these priorities or goals. And I think that's an added step from the previous strategic plan. We did look at having all of this strategic priorities and pillars addressed within ongoing agendas so that we could see every meeting how we are actually addressing our strategic plan. So I think that combined with the key performance indicators, the service inventory that we've done gives us a platform to implement key performance indicators in a way that directly measures qualitatively and quantitatively how we are performing. So I do feel that measurement tools have been accounted for in this document. So yeah, I do have a proposal for some tweaks. But yeah, I'm happy with the process and the document presented with us.
Thanks, Councillor Heeman. If I may, Ken, just a couple of things that I think council has addressed most of the items that I personally earmarked, but just a couple of questions for you, if you could maybe answer. On 2E, you talk about the municipality should partner with the County of Middlesex to develop a transportation master plan specific to the Thames Centre community. Could you expand on that a little bit in terms of what exactly the feedback that you got drove that particular item?
Well, I guess the intent is that there's always that pressure for some form of transit, transportation, and knowing that Thames Centre is limited by resources and size and scope. That that importance behind being maybe a part of the County of Essex and being able to maybe draw on some of the opportunities that exist there, or leverage some of the resources and financial opportunities that maybe will assist in achieving a goal on a local basis in Thames. So I think it's one of those priorities that are important to council and important to the members of the communities, but it's trying to find the resources and the capacity to be able to make it work and keep it sustainable.
Okay, thank you. I agree with that. I'm not sure whether you're aware, but through the SCORE, South Central Ontario Regional Economic Development, we did get grant funding for a community transporter out here, but that grant funding goes until 2025. But so far the issue has been, even with some tweaking and offering of cards and that sort of thing through the library, there's been a little bit of an issue of ridership. So that's just for your information, Ken.
Yeah.
There was one other question. 3E, the municipality could fund the initial establishment of the Thames Centre Chamber of Commerce in addition to funding for community groups, local arts and culture initiatives. Just wondered if you could expand on that one a wee bit too, because I was wondering, does this actually mean Thames Centre taking out a membership with the Chamber of Commerce, or is this something that we could maybe work into our Economic Advisory Committee?
Yeah, I think the intent really is recognizing that it doesn't exist, and there's some startup costs and resources, whether it's staff or your Economic Development Committee, just trying to get people organized, pointed in the right direction, and being able to get a sustainable, viable chamber off the ground, so that it can perform in the later years, and council can start to sort of pull back its resources and allow it to be an organization that represents the business community in Thames Center.
Okay, thank you. And I do note too that some of the initiatives that are listed throughout the document, I'm happy to say we at least are making a step in the right direction for some of them. In terms of tweaking the document, there would be a wee bit of language cleanup in the initial under the section for goals, the opening paragraphs, but that's minor, could be worked on later. Otherwise, I think that's it for my comments. I think we have a follow-up from Councillor Heeman.
Yeah, I have a draft of proposed amendments that I think we could get started on that exercise of tailoring and working towards making sure this reflects council's vision, and having consulted with everybody on council beforehand. I tried to include, I think, a lot of the comments that were just mentioned by members of council. So I'll read it as follows. That the draft 2024-2027 strategic plan be amended by including an additional pillar of sustainability. That the executive summary of draft 2024-2027 strategic plan be amended to include sustainability, a prioritized goal to ensure that the municipality maintains fiscal prudence along with affordable and sustainable taxation levels. That the recommendation section of draft 2024-2027 strategic plan smart planning be amended by removing and replacing item 2A with the municipality should work with staff and council to reduce wait times for applications for consent, minor variance, official plan amendments, and zoning amendments. That the recommendation section of draft 2024-2027 strategic plan community communications and engagement section be amended by adding 3F. The municipality should conduct a integrated service delivery review. That the recommendation section of draft 2024-2027 strategic plan active living section be amended by replacing 4D with the municipality should work with existing partners to support the playroom and youth center in urban centers of Dorchester and Thorndale. That the recommendation section of draft 2024-2027 strategic plan municipal services section be amended by adding the municipality should form an ad hoc doctor recruitment committee. That the recommendation section for draft 2024-2027 strategic plan should be amended by adding section 7 sustainability, and the recommendation section of the draft 2024-2027 strategic plan be amended by adding the following. 7A, the municipality should establish a reserve fund policy and review the policy annually. 7B, the municipality should ensure that it acts with all fiscal prudence or with fiscal prudence to maintain affordable and sustainable taxation levels. Section 7C, the municipality should prioritize green initiatives and work with the Thames Center Environmental Advisory Committee closely. 7D, the municipality should develop a tree planting program and ensure that funding is made available for this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. So, are there any other comments or questions before we move on? So, Tom, are you? Go ahead, Ken. Yes.
Sorry, I just if there's no other questions or comments, I just want to say that I appreciate the opportunity in providing this service and work for y'all, and hope that there's information in there that can be used as you continue to craft a document that will support you today and tomorrow and into the future. The comments with respect to planning, I certainly don't want to see or would recommend giving up local planning. In fact, I think the intent is to try to streamline and improve local planning and find ways to be more efficient. As well as with water and wastewater, it's the intent behind that was really to look at, you know, a more sustainable and efficient you know, program that can benefit your users. So if uploading it to the county it does not result in that, I certainly wouldn't stand behind that or follow through. I think it's something that staff with council should just simply look at as an option and an opportunity if it exists, and if it doesn't, then you've been able to come back to the public and say we've explored that option, and that's really the intent. Is really just to give you you know, the start and the framework by which when you're going through your presentations and as new you know, things come to council, you can always come back to the 3, 4, 5 pillars that you've established and say, how do these motions and policies meet in effect or become part of those policies or those pillars. So again, I just want to say thanks, and if there's any more questions, I'm certainly here. I don't think you can see me, but you're in and out. I can see you sometimes, and wish you all the best.
Thank you, Ken. I believe Councillor Crockett has something to say.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think this is actually a question for the clerk. There's been so many amendments come forward this evening and some changes that need to be made. Is there a different recommendation to the or recommended motion that we can put forward that we can receive tonight as information and then implement these amendments for next meeting to see a final draft? I'm just worried that things won't be captured if we move forward with this motion as it's written.
Through you, Your Worship, there's currently the motion on the floor from Councillor Heeman that could certainly be passed and have that amended to the strategic plan, and then maybe pass one to be deferred to the next meeting with all changes discussed.
Okay, thank you for that. I just wanted clarity now that the amendments have come forward.
So to the clerk, then, do we need a friendly amendment to the motion?
We need a seconder to Councillor Heeman's
To
motion.
Councillor Heeman's. Is there anyone who would like to second Councillor Heeman's motion for the amendments? Councillor Lockie? Then we'll call the vote. Or Deputy Mayor Smyber has something to say?
Sorry, I just want to make sure. So the motion on the floor is Councillor Heeman's recommendations in terms of some changes to the plan. I just want to make sure that within that motion, to Councillor Crockett's point of view, that the amended or the updated plan is brought forward to the next council meeting for consideration.
Yeah, and I circulated the recommendations to you, but I made an error in that item 4 on the first page was not included in an actual verbiage for a change. So if I could read that in before and maybe an amendment to the amendment, and then we need to look at Chantel's friendly amendment. So just the additional item to replace 6B with the municipality should develop a water and wastewater master plan to address future needs of planning initiatives. The municipality should explore cost saving measures without compromising the service, safety, or water quality.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to defer to the clerk to where we're standing right now.
I'm wondering if any other council members want to add friendly amendments to that motion, if that's the easiest way.
Councillor Crockett.
In addition to Councillor Heeman's recommendations, can we also add the addition of a strategic statement and vision to the beginning pieces of the strategic plan?
So at this point, can I have you just reiterate the motion so that everybody's clear on what is?
Yes, I don't know if I should
Excuse
read
me.
all of Tom's or just the part at the end. It's probably easier just to do the two at the end. Thank you.
Okay. I don't think you need to go through them all, but the
No,
one,
just at the
yeah.
end. So in addition to Councillor Heeman's motion, we would add that 6B be replaced with the municipality should develop a water and wastewater master plan to address future needs and planning initiatives. And that the municipality should explore cost-saving measures without compromising the service and safety of water quality. And that the addition of a strategic statement and vision be added to the beginning of the strategic plan.
thank you to the clerk. Okay, we have this motion on the floor introduced by Councillor Heeman. Do we have a seconder for the friendly amendment and the entire amendment? Councillor Lockie, I believe you. Okay, all in favor? All right, seeing none opposed, then that motion carries. So this will be brought forward then to the next meeting in December. Remind me the date? No, it will be the November 27th meeting then. Yes. Okay. All right.
The amendment was passed, but the balances are still on the floor.
The wording of it going to the next meeting isn't included in the resolution. Just the amendments to the strategic plan have been passed so far.
Yeah, so the main motion is still on the floor.
So the recommendation according to our agenda here is that report number CAO dash 011-23 be received for information, and that the 2024 to 2027 Thames Center Strategic Plan final draft be approved as presented. So that is obviously not what's happening as amended. So we'll add those in. Okay,
Sorry.
Councillor,
So I guess, I'm viewing it that we're not in a position to approve the plan because we're asking for changes. And it's my expectation that we see the plan with those changes in it before we would adopt it.
Through the mayor, that's fine. I just want to procedurally understand. There was I thought there was a motion on the floor and then there was an amendment.
It was
And-
Councillor Heeman's motion, and then they made friendly amendments to it, but it wasn't the one from the agenda.
Okay. Just so from a staff perspective, we have clarity in terms of what's happening next. I didn't want any confusion.
Councillor Heeman.
So I believe we receive it as information currently, and then when we get the presentation next meeting, then we adopt it.
Do you want to provide direction in there that staff bring it back?
Yeah, I think that was Chantel and Michelle's intention. So well, if we don't, yeah, so I would make the motion that report number CAO 1123 be received as information, and that the Thames Center 2024-2027 Thames Center Strategic Plan final draft with noted amendments be presented for approval at the next council meeting.
Okay, we're all clear on that. So we will, you're moving that motion then? Okay, a seconder, Councillor Crockett. And I'll call the vote. All in favor? All right. The motion carries then. Thank you all. And Ken, if you're still on the online, thanks very much for your input. We'll be back.
I am, and thank you, and enjoy your evening.
Enjoy the balance of your vacation.
Thank you. I will. And sunny St. Kitts.
Oh, no.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. You too. All right. So we're ready to move on then to item 5.2 on your agenda, which is the Thames Center billing model for the OPP Municipal Policing Services. And I'll ask Robert Griffin and Janet Fever to make their presentation.
Making sure everything worked. Perfect. All right, well, first of all, thank you everyone for having us tonight. My name is Rob Griffin. I'm a sergeant with the OPP. I work at General Headquarters in Aurelia in the Municipal Policing Bureau. The Municipal Policing Bureau, we look after all the contracts with the OPP with municipalities throughout Ontario. I'm here with my colleague, Janet Fever. I'll just let her introduce herself.
Certainly. Hello, my name is Janet Fever. I also work out of the Aurelia office in Municipal Policing Bureau. I'm a civilian there, and I bring a lot of years of experience with the OPP, from human resources to Police Supply and Weapons Services Bureau. So I think between Rob and I, we offer a lot of experience, and hope to respond to your questions well tonight.
Everyone may know this other person to my right. I'll let him introduce himself as well.
Yes, good evening, Your Worship, Council. Staff Sergeant Steve Haight. I'm Detachment Manager here in Middlesex. I've been here in Middlesex since 2017. And on behalf of Inspector Ross Stewart, he sends his regards. He wasn't able to make it tonight. So I'm here to put a local flavor onto presentation and answer any questions that we may be able to.
Sure, we'll get started. Just a quick overview. You saw me test this, so it was working. There. There we go. Perfect. So just a quick overview of what we're going to go over tonight. We do have a lot of, what they say to be general presentations. What we really wanted to do tonight was, focus on your municipality and get some of your information in there. So we've tailored this to be a made in your municipality presentation. So we're fortunate enough, all the 2024 billing estimates have come out already. So we will include that in here. We're going to go over your billing statement. But before we do that, we're going to go into our OPP service delivery model and how that relates to the billing model and how that all comes together. We'll touch on the billing model itself, and then we'll move into your statement. And then we'll wrap it up by talking about the new CSPA and also the contract renewal process. One of the reasons we're down here, as you know, the OPP contract that you have in your municipality is concluding at the end of this year. So there's a few options there, which we've already discussed internally, but to get everyone involved here on the floor and understand the options that are available, we'll get into that. So to understand the billing model, wrong way. There we go. I should have this correct now. Okay. So it's a good start to the meeting by talking about strategic plans. So we talked about yours first. We also have a strategic plan as the OPP. I wanted to talk about our vision because it directly relates to our billing model and how we develop that to be where it is at today. Our vision with the OPP is safe communities, a secure Ontario. And simply, it's the focus of our strategic plan. And what it means is that OPP as a business or a policing service, we have a dual mandate. Our dual mandate is to provide policing to the province and also to provide policing to municipalities. Those work hand in hand and complement one another, but we really do have a defined difference between the community policing that we do and the provincial policing that we do. And you really see that in billing because the billing that we do for our provincial duties is separate than the billing for municipal. So we do not cost recover for all of the policing that we do in Ontario, just the municipal portion in this state. So understanding OPP service delivery, detachments operate on integrated service delivery models. So what basically that means, you'll see a lot of writing on the screen, but what that means, the nuts and the bolts there, is that when you see a police officer driving around in your community, they could be possibly doing one of two things. They could be doing a provincial obligation or they could be doing a municipal obligation. So if they're doing a municipal obligation, that's something that your municipality would be billed for, such as a call for service. If they're doing something proactive or something that's a provincial mandate, it's something you would not be billed for. So there's a lot of officers out there. So how do we keep track of that? So we have a system. It's called a DAR system internally, which is a daily activity reporting tool. It's in all the police cars out there that you see driving around. So when a police officer starts their day, they start daily activity reporting. So everything they do throughout their day, it goes into this system. It's also tracked using GPS or dispatchers. There's a lot of moving parts in there to make sure it's accurate. And that gives us a more specific and accurate billing. The reasons we do this, it allows us to do things with shared costs. So when we partner with municipalities such as yourselves, it allows us to police the province and be in more places than just one. So if we can come here and work out of the Middlesex detachments. We can cover maybe 5, 6, 7 municipalities from one location instead of having to have a police station in every single municipality. And we all benefit from that because, you know, crime doesn't see borders. So we can work with one another and each municipality to make sure we deliver, you know, a stronger service for Ontarians. Moving on, I'll let my partner here talk about the overall budget and how that provincial and municipality budget is broken up. Want me to run this?
Yes, please. Would you mind? Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay? Okay, lovely. So on the screen here, we see a wheel. On the right-hand side of the wheel, we see those provincial responsibilities that Rob talked about. And those responsibilities include proactive police work. It includes aircraft enforcement, major investigations, covert operations. It includes our tactical teams, aviation services, Indigenous policing, auxiliary policing. So everything on the right-hand side of the screen here, the OPP does not cost recover for municipalities. These services are included in the services that you get from the OPP in your municipality. There is no cost recovery for any of these services. On the left-hand side, we see the portion of the OPP's budget that is allotted to municipal policing. And this is the amount that needs to be recovered from municipalities for municipal policing. And it includes things like frontline officers, frontline supervision, communications operators, our prisoner guards, vehicles, uniforms, equipment. Those items we do cost recover for through legislation. So there's only a portion of OPP services that are billed out to municipalities. And then this small portion is other services there in the 2%. So if you could please move to the next one. So that's a lot of money that needs to be allocated appropriately to municipalities for billing. And that DAR system that Rob mentioned is key to helping us, to help keep things accurate for you. So you'll see that your bill is divided into 3 main categories, and those categories include base services, calls for service, and other. Base services include proactive policing. So when officers are out doing proactive police work, that's included in base services. It includes officer training, administrative duties. All of that is included in base services, and that is billed out equally on a per property basis. So we use MPAC data to determine the number of properties in your municipality, and that is multiplied by the base services rate, which is roughly $165 per property. And that is the amount for base services on the bill. It's based on a per property basis. The next section of your bill could be thought of as the more variable component of your bill, and it's the calls for service. And this includes when someone picks up the phone or calls in, they need the assistance of an officer for whatever reason. Those calls are logged in our DAR system and tracked so that they can be billed out. Now, those calls for service, we're going to get into this in a little bit, but they're actually assigned standard times so that we can bill you appropriately for the type of call that has been received. Other costs are billed on a per use basis. So overtime, court security, cleaning, accommodations, and prisoner transportation. Those are included in the bill as other services on an as required basis. Now here we have the front page of the 2024 annual billing statement. It's brand new. It was just released earlier this month. And we see here the 3 sections of the bill that I mentioned earlier. There's base services, which we see there's 5,775 properties multiplied by that $165 per property gives us our total base rate. Then we have the calls for service component of the bill that is more variable. And that comes out to roughly $131.86 per property in this municipality. And at the bottom, in the green box, we see the other expenses, things like overtime, prisoner transportation, and accommodation. Those are billed out as appropriate for every municipality and gives us a total cost per house, per property in this municipality of $318.63. That's a really quick walkthrough overview of the front page of your bill. And we're going to get in some more details here. I'm going to switch things back over to Rob to talk about that calls for service section of the bill.
Perfect. Thanks, Janet. So just to add as well, we're not here to make anyone a billing model expert tonight. So don't worry about that. There's no tests here. I know we're going through this material pretty quickly, but before I started tonight, I got a chance to say hi to a few people, but in front of you, there's a municipal policing guide. And in that guide, there's a lot of material that is specific to this presentation. So I really encourage after the presentation, you can use that as a reference guide to help explain some of this stuff more in detail. And also this presentation itself, keep this presentation and go through it. There's some finite detail in here that may help when you're making decisions on things in regards to billing. Janet had a chance to talk about the municipal breakdown, the provincial breakdown, and about how we recover for costs on the municipal portion. And in there, she talked about the variable cost, which is our calls for service. So what you're looking at here on the screen is the calls for service breakdown for your municipality. So this is like a snapshot. It's on page 5 of your billing statement. So the billing statement that you receive from us annually, this would be page 5. What's really neat about this year is they've also added another chart right below this one for the province. So you are actually able now to see the province numbers as well as your numbers to compare yours to the total province numbers. So they're on the same page, page 5. You'll notice there's 9 billable working groups in here. It starts with drug possession, works its way down, drugs, operational 2, etc. These headings, they represent all of your calls for service. So anytime there's a call for service in your municipality, it's placed in one of these categories. So depending on what it is, for example, say you had a domestic dispute. That was a radio call that came in your area. That would fall under operational. So that would go into operational. Again, moving past page 5 in your billing statement, all of the calls for services are listed in there. And you're able to see how many domestics you have or how many break and enters you have. And they're under these headings. So sticking with that operational section, this is one of my favorite slides because it actually gives us a lot of information. Great information as a snapshot as counselors, great information as a snapshot for a detachment commander or operator. You can really get a quick view of what's happening in your community. So operation, you'll see right away, it seems really high, but that's completely normal. Across the province, operational is like our regular go-to calls, things that are not criminal in nature, things like small disputes that we have to go to, or something that doesn't involve a criminal charge. Okay, and you'll notice when you look at operational, you can see there's a column that says average time standard. So the average time standard, Janet touched on very briefly, but what they do at the end of every calendar year is they take all of the calls for service across the province that fall in that category, and they find the average time that it takes a police officer to respond to and complete that call. So across the province, an operational call takes an officer 3.8 hours. Okay. So that being said, say an officer goes to a call and it takes them 11 hours. It's a one-off. You're still only charged the 3.8, right? So if it takes them an hour, it's still the 3.8. So it works both ways, but usually this is very accurate. So it's a good way to keep things consistent, to do proper budgets, and these estimates are very, very accurate year from year. And as I mentioned, they're relooked at every year as well to ensure that these standards are staying true to what they are. So we're also doing things as OPP to I guess make them more accurate as well. So if you look at operational right below, you'll see operational 2. So a lot of these operational calls, we noticed there was some that were a lot less time and then some that were a lot more time. So for example, a call like a false alarm, it would take a lot less time than 3.8 hours. So There was a second category created called operational 2, which you'll notice the time standard on that is 1.5. So if we notice there's a big skew, we look at the calls more in depth to do a further breakdown or to better depict that call group. You can also tell from this slide what's happening within the community as far as crime trends. So, I'm taking a quick look at this slide right here, and I'm looking at property crime violations. You'll look in 2019, you had 321. You look, your 4-year average is 291, and you look at 2022, which is a reconcile number, which is 305. So you can see there's been a decrease in property crime, which is a great thing. So, as a detachment operator or detachment commander, you can look at where you're going to put your resources to focus on crime trends. Okay, so again, we can go really in depth into this, and I really encourage you to look at your billing statement and see what's happening in your community as far as calls for service and where they're falling in these billing groups. We'll go to the next slide, and it's just a quick slide. I always put this one up because it is frontline efficiencies. So I spoke of making new billing groups and changing the hours to be less to more depict the calls. So what the OPP has done is put together a working group to find more efficiencies in the front line. So one of the examples on here is 911 calls. We have a lot of 911 drop calls, and before police officers would have to respond to those calls. So when I was a young officer on the road and we got a 911 call for service, even if we knew it was a broken phone or a bad phone line where Bell was doing work in the area, we'd have to go and we'd have to search the area and check the area, stay in the area until that was determined no foul play. Right now, with new technologies, we're able to get around that and not have to respond to those types of calls. So those types of calls have been removed from the billing categories. So again, a quick snapshot of efficiencies. There's many on here. Call diversions, our online reporting system. You can see our call reductions from online reporting in the bottom left corner, 911 diversions. And you can also see it broken down in some of the charts there per region. We would fall under West region here, so you can see the amount of calls and diversions that have occurred. Next page here is OPP billing policing costs. This slide here is taken from opp.ca. I put this slide up because I wanted to speak about what's available as well online. So in addition to having this presentation, the guide that we've left, we also have a great website. We have amazing people that are putting things together constantly to help get message and communication out to our municipalities. When you go on to opp.ca, if you type in municipal policing, our page will come up, and in there you will find a ton of videos. You'll find tools to work with where you can change your calls for service and see different costs for billing. I picked 2 here that I just quickly did before I came out. The first one is basically your municipality, your section 10 with detachment you're in, and it shows your last 10 years of cost per property. So if you look at the bottom, I've circled 319, which is 2024, and you can see that over the past 4 or 5 years, it's very consistent. And in that right-hand side, you'll see OPP average cost per property. So the average cost per property estimated this year in Ontario is $348 per property. You're sitting at $319. So you're below the cost per property average there. The next one below is another tool that's in there. It's a OPP billing model cost recovery tool where you can see what other municipalities are doing. So you can actually go in and compare yourself. It's a comparing tool to other municipalities your size. You can actually put in detachments. What I did on this scenario on the bottom here, I put detachment Middlesex. So every municipality that's policed out of the same detachment here, what agreements they have, it's a 5.1 or a section 10, how many property counts they have, and what the cost per property is. So if you look at the cost per property versus everyone else in your area, it's very consistent, and you're a bit on the lower side. So the lots to see on opp.ca. Next slide. OPP contract expiry options. So we spoke just at the beginning of the presentation about your contract ending at the end of this calendar year. There are a few options. First, currently you are in a Section 10 agreement with the OPP. There is the ability now from the ministry to do a 1 or 2 year extension of that. So what that means is everything stays the exact same how it is today, except for the expiry date of the contract is pushed off 1 or 2 years. Included in that also, as we all know, the CSPA is around the corner. There's also a clause in that that says if the CSPA is implemented within that time, then that contract will be null and void, and it'll just be a no contract once the CSPA comes into play. So that's option 1. Option 2 is to do a complete contract renewal, which is longer than 2 years. So you can redo your contract to be up to 6 years long. So anything above the 2 year mark, you'd have to do a full contract renewal, which could bring you up to 6 years. That also would include that clause that if the CSPA came into play, would null the contract. And your third option would be to revert out of a Section 10 contract and go into a non-contract agreement now, known as a Section 5.1 agreement. Simply all that would be required there is to send written notification to our bureau, myself, that you were going to be exiting the contract and going into a 5.1 agreement with the OPP for services. No matter which option you choose here, that does not change your billing. So the billing model is the same regardless of whatever you do. So if you stay the same, you go to a new contract or you go to a 5.1, costs are the same. The biggest difference is the going to the 5.1, because when you go to a 5.1, other things come into play. You don't require a PSB anymore, Police Services Board. There's also grant options that may not be available to apply for. Currently, under the current legislation of the PSA, certain grants are only available to municipalities that are operating under a Section 10 agreement. So you have to consult with whoever on that. I'm not sure all the grants that you're getting at this time. The Municipal Policing Bureau, we don't get into the grants. It's usually directly with the ministry. And that would be it for that. So a few options to go over. I have sent off a bit of paperwork and a bit in talk with some of the council members here in regards to that extension. So hopefully I've supplied enough information to make the proper decision for your municipality. I'm going to go to the next slide here. I'll let my colleagues talk a little bit about the CSPA, not that there's much, but I'll let Janet talk about that.
Okay, the Community Safety and Policing Act, the CSPA, was introduced years ago in 2019 and has yet to come in to be proclaimed and come into effect. When it does come into effect, it will prompt a number of changes. It will repeal the current Police Services Act, and it will, from your perspective, it will eliminate the Police Services Board, and it will make any Section 10 contract, as Rob had mentioned, null and void. So all municipalities will be on an equal playing field. They'll have equal access to apply for different grants, and it will introduce what we call OPP detachment boards. So there would be one board, one or more boards per OPP detachment that would be comprised of a number of municipalities within that catchment area. So it would change the police service board experience, and it will become an OPP detachment board. We don't know when the CSPA will come into effect. Current predictions, current announcements from the ministry are April 1st, 2024. And I think that is it for the detachment boards. If you're interested in reviewing any of the CSPA, sections 67 to 71 provide details on OPP detachment boards. I know there's also training available through the Ontario Association of Police Service Boards. There were a few sessions a week or two ago, and I'm sure they will be developing resources continually to support municipalities with this transition. And that is the CSPA.
Perfect. Thanks, Janet. Last slide here, most important slide, my contact information. So if anyone has any questions, sometimes when you call headquarters, it can be really hard to get through. You get on all those prompts and trying to get through. My cell phone's on the bottom right-hand corner. please feel free to call that. It's my company phone, so you can call it anytime you want. I'll try my best to answer your questions. And there's a lot of social media pictures up there, even Pinterest, YouTube. We're on all the social media. They're not mine, but they are the OPPs. So they're out there getting messages out and trying to communicate the best we can. So if there's any questions, we're all happy to try our best to answer this for you tonight. And if we can't come up with the best answer for you, we will find one for you and get back to you ASAP. But is there any questions?
Any questions from council? Councillor Heeman? No? I thought you were raising your hand. Councillor Lockie then.
Yep, through your worship, through Sergeant Griffin. Just from my understanding, with respect to the contract options, like generally, a shorter contract is always preferred for everything. Is there any benefit to having a longer contract?
That would be municipality specific. If there was a long-term plan for grants, maybe that could be one option of why you would go that way. But with the horizon being that CSPA and things changing, I can't see that being necessary, but it's again, municipality specific. So if it aligns for you to have a longer contract, we're happy to do it. But I can say that across the province, there's 4 of us that look after Ontario right now. And there's how many municipalities are we under contract? Over 375?
300, yes, that's roughly
375. And most people are choosing the extension at this point just because of that CSPA.
Okay.
The one advantage is it's a wild card. We don't know when the CSPA is coming into effect. So if it is deferred again and you had opted for a shorter term contract, it just means we'll do another extension if required next year.
Okay. I have one more question. Also, through your worship to Sergeant Griffin. So, costs everywhere are going up, but I see that you've kept your costs pretty flat. What has been like the main driver that's enabled you to successfully be able to keep your costs flat?
Personally, just from doing this job and seeing how this all works, I think a lot of the reason the costs have stayed consistent is because of the billing model and the way that we use a 4-year average. So you don't see those high peaks and low valleys when you do these averages over 4 years. So it takes a long time for the cost to actually change. Secondly, that efficiency chart that I put up, OPP, I guess you could say, in the pursuit for excellence, we're trying to keep costs down because diversion's key, working with the community is key to make sure our costs are low. And, prevention is number one. Janet and I were talking about this on the way down actually today about how crime prevention, working with communities, diversion is key, right? Like if we're not responding to calls for service, that's how you keep your costs down. So I think I hope that's answered your question.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Heeman?
Yes, I noticed on your slide for the municipal breakouts that there was a section there for enhancements. As something that could be billed directly to municipalities. And I've heard of some townships doing enhancements to get a dedicated police officer. And then I'm just asking if this is factual and or how that process works, because I noted that we have a large concern with speeding. And I know like it's a data-driven world and we have to have the calls to highlight the hotspots. But I think when you're covering a larger area that can become difficult. And if we wanted to get more of a presence, then an enhancement might be an option. And is that correct? Or
Yeah, that's a great question. And you pretty much hit the number one enhancement that people are looking for is a traffic enhancement. Across the province, it's probably the most common request is for enhanced traffic enforcement. Speeding is the number one concern, probably one in the top 3 of all of our municipalities across the province. In addition to all the proactive stuff the OPP is actually doing, with the big 4 enforcement and whatnot. But currently, within the last year, the OPP's put a moratorium on enhancements for uniform officers. The reason being is we're trying to increase our staffing size. So right now, OPP, I don't know if you've seen it in the news, but the provincial government, everyone's really helping us with supporting the increase of policing, especially with, not having to pay for the Ontario Police College right now. And we're trying to recruit heavily to increase our numbers. So if we, start putting out enhancement, that kind of takes away from our initial increase of staff anyhow, right? And hopefully the increase in staff will help with those concerns as well. But I think right now with the moratorium, that's not going to be forever. It'll probably eventually, once we get our staffing levels to the point where the province is happy and the municipalities are happy, then we'll probably pull that back and do the enhancements again. However, that being said, we talked about diversion and proactive policing. What a lot of municipalities have chosen to do recently, and I've seen this in West Region, is not get a uniform enhancement officer, but get a civilian enhancement person. And a lot of times what happens in those scenarios, which there's no moratorium on, so you can still do this, but they get support people, detachment administration clerks, collision reporting centers, things that will free up officers' time where they don't have to, do that full traffic report at the scene. They don't have to go to a minor property damage accident, and they can be arced over to a CRC and do that work there. But again, CRCs can get busy. So, you need to ensure that you have proper staffing and adequate levels. It's a great conversation to have with your operations managers at the detachment to see what's needed there. That communication of, hey, where could we help as far as alleviating officers' time, and we're really looking to do XYZ here. It's a great conversation to start and maybe lead to another type of enhancement other than an officer. Sorry, go ahead.
Just as a follow-up, how do you anticipate that would work under the new police services board being county level? Like, would that have to be a county level levy, or would it be something that, like, if you have a shared staff member, like, how do you guarantee that they're just working on one townships? Because crime doesn't happen in a steady workflow necessarily.
So again, when the CSPA does come into play, there will be availability under Section 17 to do enhancements as well. So those will be able to be shared. So you will be able to share those enhancements with other municipalities. However, your question as far as how do we know where they are? Well, we have that DAR system that we talked about of tracking officers' time and where they are and what they're doing. So we would highly rely on the data that we collect. As you mentioned, tracking data is key, and where they're working, what they're doing, where they're spending their time, what enforcement's being done, and where their focused patrols are. So I think if you were to look at an enhancement in the future and partner with others, you'd have to determine of how you want to disperse that resource, right? So the key with an enhancement is that enhancement belongs to municipalities. So they're not doing other work. So they're not doing that provincial activity. They're not doing the municipal activity. And if they do, you're not billed for it. So currently, how it works with an enhancement, the OPP guarantees a process of a year, we will allocate resources to achieve those hours. If we fall short,
There's
Four.
four locations. within
Okay.
Middlesex.
All right, good.
Yeah, London, Strathroy.
All right, then, we have a motion that the presentation be to be received for information, a mover and a seconder. Consensus in order to move to item number, oh, I'm sorry, did I miss you, Tom?
Yeah, I just had a
Right. Go
a
ahead.
resolution arising from the presentation. I was wondering if I could make the motion that staff regularly provide its municipal speed monitoring data to the local OPP detachment for its review and consideration for the intelligence-led enforcement operations in Thames Center.
So we have this motion presented, a seconder for that motion? Councillor Crockett? Call the vote, all in favor? Motion is carried then. Okay, then, so consensus to move to item 8.2 from council? Yes, seeing no objection, then I'll refer to the clerk for item 8.2.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm presenting report number clerk -015-23 to provide more information on council's options to move forward with our current agreement for police services. So once the CSPA goes into effect, the need for Section 10 agreements will be eliminated, as all municipalities, and First Nation groups will together transition into the one new OPP detachment board. So to reiterate what's already been said with respect to our current agreement expiring Council's options are to extend it by 1 or 2 years, which most municipalities are choosing to do. They're choosing to shorten the extension to bridge the time frame. The full renewal of 3, 4, 5, or 6 years. Should council wish to extend this agreement either through renewing or fuller reunion, a bylaw is required, which would come back to the next meeting of council before it expires at the end of the year. Council also has the option to revert back to the Section 5 non-contract agreement, which would begin on January 1st, which there are impacts to this decision, including the dissolution of our current Police Services Board, as well as increased risks of the limitations on grant opportunities. However, maintaining as the only Section 10 board in Middlesex County could place an unfair administrative burden on our staff compared to other municipalities and the county during the transition period. If you have any questions, myself, the CAO, and members of the OPP are here. Thank you.
So in light of that, any questions from the members of council? Deputy Mayor Smyberg.
I see our Police Service Board Chair is here this evening. I'm making, but I'm just making the assumption that I'm not sure if there was consultation with the chair specifically, but that there's agreement with the clerk's recommendation for the year extension.
Yeah, I would say 1 or 2. The comment I heard tonight is that this could be enacted on April 1st. And that's kind of moving targets.
Thank you. Any other questions for CAO clerk or, all right? Okay, so the motion is that report number clerk 015-23 be received for information, and that council direct the interim clerk to enter into a contract extension for 1 year, and that the interim clerk be directed to bring forward the implementing bylaw for council's consideration at the next regular meeting. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Heeman and seconded by Deputy Mayor Smyberg. All in favor? That motion carries. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That's great. Next item on your agenda is the adoption of the minutes, item 6.1 of the regular council minutes from October the 30th, 2023. And the motion is that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on October 30th, 2023 be approved as circulated. A mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Smyberg, Councillor Heeman. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. The consent agenda is item number 7 on your agenda. Items listed under the consent agenda are received for information in one motion. Council members may request that one or more item be removed for further action. Are there any items that council might want to pull? Councillor Lockie?
I would like to pull section 7.5 as I think it's worthy of discussion to see if it'd be feasible to implement here.
Okay. All righty. So in that particular case, a mover and a seconder to, let's see, go the consent agenda items 7.1 through 7.4 and 7.6 be received as information. A mover and a seconder, Councillor Heeman and Councillor Crockett. All in favor? That motion carries. Thank you. So item 7.5?
Yeah, through your worship, I took a look at what was proposed here by Perry Sound, and I think it may be worthy of either, bringing this forward to the police services committee, or possibly get our CEO to investigate, the cost of possibly implementing this versus and the benefit. That would be my recommendation.
Sorry, you're moving the motion?
I just put
Or
either of
are we
those,
opening for
either of those
discussion?
as an option for discussion.
Okay, for discussion then. Any comments from the members of council?
I think the technology we have has some ability to be retrofitted with photo radar capabilities. The current legislation allows for it within school zones. And I think the challenge is when in discussions with the previous CAO Henry was that the legal costs of enforcement have to be accounted for, and preferably through some sort of specialized agency. So I think in my current discussions with CAO Barrick that the City of London has looked at some of these automated compliance mechanisms, and it might be a worthy time to look at a potential service agreement for the at least the legal prosecution of some of these violations.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Smyburn.
Yeah, so further on what Councillor Heumann has indicated, the intent, I think, of this letter is that the Highway Traffic Act currently doesn't allow for that. So I think Perry Sound had forwarded the letters so that they could get endorsement from other municipalities that would allow then the province to take a look at that and hopefully change the provisions of the Highway Traffic Act to permit this. So if you're looking for a motion to endorse this resolution, I would move that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Heumann?
I would second that. But I'd also request a friendly amendment for a report on the viability of implementation within school zones.
All right. Do we have a seconder for the friendly amendment? Councillor Lockie? Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor then? All right. That motion carries then. Thank you. So the next one is moving on to reports of departments. 8.1 CAO 010-23 2023 Fall Economic Update Report. Mr. Barrick, if you're ready to go ahead.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Mayor. So this report is in response to a council resolution that was passed September 11th. That staff work with Middlesex County Economic Development Team to prepare a report for information respecting a local economic update. And so that's what we have before you here. The body of this report does include information that was released as of November 2nd, and that is the province of Ontario's Fall Economic Outlook and Fiscal Review. Information attached as well includes Middlesex County update that was provided in the summer. And as well before you, you have physically hard copy of the Middlesex County Investors Guide to be included as part of this information. And of course, the Thames Center specific information is provided as well, predominantly in the form of infographics, but there is some significant economic data that is portrayed within those two pages. And, our intent is to kind of further refine this annually as we move forward. So any feedback you have as well is always appreciated. Happy to take questions as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Barrick. Any questions from the members of council? Councillor Heumann.
Yes, through your worship to the CAO, I noticed that there is a significant shortfall in development charge revenues. Is that something that you have any recommendations on?
Mr. Barrick.
Well, thank you through the mayor. So yeah, that
line graph that demonstrates the development charges collected. You can see kind of peaked in 2021, climbing since 2018, and then in a downward trend as well. I think it may be on the screen, leading into this year as well. That's year-to-date numbers. We anticipate it'll be a little bit more by year end. And so this is a simple acknowledgement of the existing market conditions that we're currently facing, and something certainly to be aware of as we proceed into our budget discussion in the next few weeks, if that helps.
Okay, Councillor Crockett.
Just kind of following up with what Councillor Heeman said, do we anticipate to see some growth in 2024, knowing kind of what building permits and how we expect to have, say, something like Hawthorne Heights come forward? Or do we anticipate that in any way, shape, or form, or is that something we kind of have to wait and see on?
Would you like to try that one, or shall I? Go ahead.
Oh, I'm happy to, Mayor, unless you have comments. Okay, so yeah, we anticipate that the numbers for 2024 will start to come back up and stabilize a bit more in line, probably around the 2019 numbers, around, the 2 million mark-ish, give or take. Certainly won't be the highs that we've seen the last couple of years, but not necessarily. We anticipate 2023 will be a pretty low year, and expect it to come up quite a bit just with respect to the projections and the plans that we have currently. As I noted earlier to Councillor Heeman's question with respect to the market conditions, it's interesting to note as well that DCs collected differ from number one, the legislation allows us only to collect 85%. Next year, we'll be able to collect 90%. But as well, the applications respecting developments in the village areas like Dorchester and Thorndale that have water, wastewater collection charges, and the rural areas which do not. And so there's a slowdown in kind of the village areas, but there's not a slowdown in the rural areas. So the numbers are still solid, just a less amount of development charges collected on that front. So those are some of the dynamics that are at play. And I'm not sure if Director Bancroft wanted to maybe add anything to that as well.
Thank you, Your Worship. I really don't have anything to add further to CAO Barrick. Other than there's also other situations where we're not in a position to collect development charges, such as the replacement of farm dwellings. There's a DC credit that is applied in those circumstances. There's also through the Development Charges Act, we are not able to collect on industrial expansions if they are no more than 50%. That's also another situation where it impacts the DC revenue coming in. So thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bancroft. Are there any other questions from the members of council? Councillor Heeman?
Just another point of note, it seemed like there was quite a few renovation permits that are still outgoing. So maybe those are a little more affordable, but and specifically with the new allowances for accessory and ancillary dwellings, do we have any mechanism of capturing that added housing stocks? Because there are added infrastructure costs associated with higher occupancy. Do we have any mechanism available for DCs on those types of developments?
Mr. Bancroft, do you want to answer that?
Yes, Your Worship. Unfortunately, there's no ability through DCs to collect on those situations in terms of additions to existing homes, including additional residential units. So yeah, unfortunately, that tool is not available.
Are there any other questions? Okay, so that we have the motion on the floor that report number CAO-010-23, the 2023 fall economic update be received for information. Moved by Councillor Heeman and seconder Councillor Crockett. All in favor? Thank you. The motion carries. The next one will also refer to the clerk. Item 8.3, Economic Development Advisory Committee, terms of reference. Sarah, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm presenting report number clerk -014-23 to present the terms of reference for the Economic Development Advisory Committee for Council's consideration and adoption. As background, this committee was established at the September 25th meeting of Council. Staff have developed the terms of reference for this committee and have attached it to the report for your review. Please note that the composition of the committee should be a cross-section of not only business representatives from all sectors, but also of geographic business locations within Thames Center wherever possible. As per the recommended motion, 2 members of council will also need to be appointed today. Thank you.
All right. Any questions of the clerk? Deputy Mayor Smyber?
Great, thank you. I agree with the terms of reference as drafted. I just wanted to know if there was any consideration to involve a member of the county economic development team as in an advisory capacity to attend those meetings, because they do have some expertise.
Sure. You could certainly amend the terms of reference. We can include that in there.
Thank you.
Councillor Heeman, did you have your hand to ask a question?
Yeah, I would agree. I think having an advisory capacity would probably be a benefit as well. When you consider the Community Futures as well has a county presence, but has an office in Thames Center and does a lot of work incubating and supporting small business. And, yeah, and I've talked with some other smaller community groups, and they had expressed interest in participating, but not necessarily on a ongoing basis, more, as needed in an advisory capacity. So that might be a good amendment.
Any other questions before we move to the motion? So, Sarah, just the first part of that motion, then it would read that the report number clerk 014-23 be received for information, and that the terms of reference for the Economic Development Advisory Committee be approved as amended. Would that be the new wording? Okay. So following that, then, and that 2 members of council be appointed as council representatives on the Economic Development Advisory Committee, and that staff be requested to advertise seeking committee appointments in local newspaper, website, and social media as necessary, and noting that groups identified within this report will also be notified, and that staff be requested to report back to council concerning the outcome of advertising seeking new appointments, noting that a bylaw consolidating all appointments once known will be prepared for council for approval. A mover and a seconder. Okay, any question?
Yes,
Yep.
if I could, just to address the
Certainly.
appointees from council. So I'd like to put forward Councillor Heeman's name for a member on the committee.
Are you in agreement? Okay. Anyone else? If no one else wants to, I would have an interest in it, or if that's not appropriate to say at this point. Councillor Heeman?
Well, I would nominate Mayor McMillan.
Okay. All right. So back to the motion, then adding the councillors as Councillor Heeman and myself as mayor be members of the committee. So are you still willing to move your motion as amended? All right. Moved by Deputy Mayor Smybert and seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? That motion is carried then. Thank you. All right. So 8.4 PDS 068-23 application for draft plan of condominium official plan amendment zoning, the Director of Planning, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the purpose of this report is it provides an evaluation of the subject proposal to facilitate the construction of a townhouse condominium. This proposal was presented at a public meeting of Municipal Council back on September 19th, 2022. And this report includes a summary of the public and agency consultation process, along with a recommendation for Council's consideration. Just in terms of background, the subject property, it's a 1 hectare parcel of land. Municipal address is 233 Upper Queen Street in Thorndale. It's on the south side of Upper Queen Street, just east of Agnes Street, in the village of Thorndale, and it's adjacent to Thorndale Community Park. This property contains a single detached dwelling along with an accessory building, and there's full municipal services in terms of piped municipal water and sanitary sewers located along Upper Queen Street. And also these lands are designated and zoned for residential. So in terms of the proposal, we now have a revised proposal, which proposes 38 units to support 2-story townhouse dwellings on full municipal services, and that is same as the original proposal. Also, the development would be accessible by a private road from Upper Queen Street, which would form a common element feature of the condominium, including all underground infrastructure. And also, of course, existing buildings and structures, they would need to be removed from the site. In terms of changes to the original proposal, we've got a stormwater management facility now proposed in the southwest corner of the site to accommodate quality and quantity control measures. Also, an increase in the number of visitor parking spaces from 4 to 8. And then lastly, along the Upper Queen Street frontage, we had 3 townhouse units that backed onto the street originally. However, the revised plan includes 2 visitor parking spaces accessible from the private road along the frontage of Upper Queen Street at the entrance of the condominium. Those 3 townhouse units have been reallocated internally, but most importantly, Your Worship, along the Upper Queen Street interface, this development from an aesthetics standpoint would include a combination of black wrought iron fencing along with a landscape feature. There's a number of reports that were submitted in support of this proposal, including a planning justification report, traffic impact study, a noise assessment, preliminary servicing, an archaeological investigation, and then finally a geotechnical investigation. To allow this development, the applicant did apply for an official plan amendment to permit the townhouse dwellings, considering they weren't able to meet the criteria under the plan. I should also point out that notwithstanding the requested amendment, the development would comply to the official plan through amendment number 27, being the 5-year update, which promotes a greater density in housing stock. So although OPA 27 is in the hands of Middlesex County, and it is to be considered for approval at the November 21st meeting, regardless, this report includes an evaluation of the requested amendment, considering OPA 27 is not approved and it is not in full force and effect. Also, what was requested as part of this development was a rezoning application to rezone the subject lands from an R1 category to a site-specific R3 category to allow townhouse dwellings subject to some site-specific provisions in terms of front yard depth, side yard width, and rear yard depth. My report goes on, Your Worship, to provide the comments received during the public consultation and agency consultation process. From the county engineer, he has no comment on the official plan amendment or zoning bylaw amendment. However, he notes that the owner should be required to construct all underground services outside of the travel portion of the road, such that at least one lane of traffic can be maintained for service repairs or reconstruction. He also adds that this development should be designed to ensure that emergency response vehicles, including fire trucks, can maneuver in and out of the proposed condo development. From the county emergency services, they've noted the need for addressing requirements for this development. Also, that appropriate infrastructure be in place for connecting to 911 call agency prior to any occupancy of any structures. Also, consultation requirement with the municipal fire chief, ensuring fire hydrant locations meet firefighting purposes. And then lastly, that a permanent no exit sign be posted immediately inside the entrance of the condo development. From Canadian National Railway, they've indicated a list of standard requirements that they are requesting be included as conditions of approval, including the need for the undertaking of a noise study. Also, standard warning clauses be included in all development agreements, offers of purchase and sale for each dwelling unit located within 300 meters of the railway right-of-way. In terms of from the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, they have no objection. Canada Post is requesting standard conditions relative to the provision of community mailboxes. Bell Canada, they are requesting an easement condition of draft plan approval, very standard. From Enbridge and Hydro One, they have not identified any concerns. And lastly, from our chief building official, he's indicated that fire route must extend to provide access to all units. And similar to county emergency services, the need for a sign at the entrance showing a map of the complex with all unit locations and numbers. My report goes on to include excerpts of the public meeting with concerns raised by members of the public. And also, I've got a chart included in my report, which includes a summary of the public comments received, not only verbal comments, but also written submissions. That chart outlines the comment or concern along with a staff response. I can certainly go into detail, Your Worship, in terms of going through those points. If you'd like, if not, I can move on to the analysis section of my report.
I think we've all had an opportunity to read through those, so I would think that you could continue, Mr.
Okay.
Bancroft.
Thank you, Your Worship. But most importantly, this information, the chart with the comments received, along with the staff response. This summary was provided to members of the public who submitted written submissions, or they provided their contact information to be further notified. And that was done in advance of this evening, to ensure that those residents are kept informed. My report then goes on to speak of the analysis section, which demonstrates consistency with the provincial policy statement, in that we've got development proposed in a settlement area on full municipal services. Also, demonstration of conformity with the County of Middlesex official plan, which encourages a range of housing types and densities and housing options to meet the needs of current and future residents. And then also demonstration of alignment with the Thames Centre official plan in terms of, providing more housing options beyond single detached dwellings. My report goes on to speak to the criteria with respect to the evaluation of official plan amendments. And under section 5.1 of my report, I mentioned how the amendment constitutes sound land use planning. And then moving on, my report also outlines the evaluation criteria used for zoning bylaw amendments. And I'm satisfied that the evaluation criteria has been met, and also the evaluation criteria used to evaluate rezoning requests for medium density residential uses. So lastly, recommended draft plan approval conditions are attached to my report for council's consideration, which would be generally implemented through an agreement with the applicant. All comments received have been considered, and they have been generally addressed or can be appropriately addressed as conditions of draft plan approval. That includes not only comments from the public, but also from agencies. So based on the foregoing, Your Worship, I am satisfied that this proposal is consistent with provincial policy and conforms to the Middlesex County official plan. So without further ado, it is my recommendation that Thames Centre recommends the issuance of draft plan of condominium approval to the county, and subject to the draft plan conditions that are attached to my report. Secondly, that the application for official plan amendment be adopted in principle, and that I be directed to forward the implementing amendment to the next regular meeting of council for consideration of adoption, unless amendment number 27 to the official plan is approved by the county and in full force and effect. And then lastly, that the application for zoning bylaw amendment be approved in principle, and that I be directed to forward the implementing bylaw for council's consideration once the county has granted a draft plan of condominium approval for this development. I'm here to answer any questions, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bancroft. Any questions from the members of council on this particular item? None? Okay, all right then. Okay,
I have,
Councillor Heeman.
I have a comment through Your Worship. I think I was at the meeting when the public commented and there was a significant petition signed and circulated and received with numerous concerns. I think some of them have been addressed, as Director Bancroft has mentioned, although I feel that some of them do remain. And I think that there's still, I think, issues with having this level of density inside of a largely single detached neighborhood area. I'm not opposed to higher density. I just feel that going from single detached up to R3 is quite a steep jump. And I know there's individuals who have purchased new houses in that area with certain expectations of look and feel of the neighborhood. So I think we do need to have a mix and range of housing, but I'd be more comfortable with an R2 designation than an R3 for this particular development. And I think if you look at the amount of houses, 38 houses or residences within that small area, that's a very tight area, and they're going high in order to achieve the square footage. And in addition to some previous concerns that remain unaddressed, having automobiles, because we do not have comprehensive transportation services in Thorndale, there's the ability to accommodate all of those vehicles without blocking a single lane, by only having one single exit or entrance. The opportunity for that to be blocked is, or even if it's two lanes, you're gonna have potential for significant congestion. So I just think 38 is little dense for that area and neighborhood. Again, we do need a range of housing, but I think R2 would be more appropriate than R3.
Thank you, Councillor Heeman. At this point, Mr. Bancroft, would you like to respond to Councillor Heeman's comments?
Through Your Worship, I certainly understand the concerns that have been raised, but ultimately, I have to evaluate applications based on the policy framework. At the same time, it begs the question in terms of compatibility and appropriateness of this form of development. In terms of compatibility, compatibility is a measure of appropriateness of what is planned in terms of what is existing, in that there should be no unacceptable adverse impacts with neighboring uses. And I am of the opinion that that can be overcome based on appropriate treatments between properties, between this development and the adjacent residential uses. So with that being said, in my professional planning opinion, Your Worship, I see no reason why this proposal cannot move forward as requested. And that is my submission for you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Any follow-up with that, Councillor Heeman?
Yes, so when you're talking about mitigation, are you referring to the planting of new trees to block the line of sight? Because I know that was one of the concerns that many of the adjacent properties have, mature trees on the proposed properties side. So they do have privacy with the development of multiple story condominiums, then their privacy would be significantly affected with the destruction of that tree line, and it would take quite some time for mature trees to establish again a level of privacy that they've come to appreciate.
Any response?
Through you, Your Worship, as noted in my report in terms of the draft plan approval conditions that are recommended, I do mention the need for a tree assessment to be undertaken by a certified arborist to retain as many mature trees as possible. And at the same time, there would be also a requirement for the planting of additional trees and landscaping by the developer. And then lastly, I want to make it clear to members of council that what is being proposed from a built form standpoint are condominiums to support townhouse dwellings, that being 2 stories in height. So from a character standpoint, in the village of Thorndale, certainly we have existing dwellings, even in close proximity to the site, that are 2 stories in height. And therefore, I see this as being a good fit for the community. Again, to provide more housing options, to make our communities more sustainable, to ensure we've got housing options available for the broad demographic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bancroft. Just a question for me. In terms of built form, I understand about the density and that sort of thing. Since this is a little before my time, was there ever any consideration of semi-detached units in that area as opposed to townhouses?
Your Worship, there were no semi-detached dwellings proposed, even from a pre-application standpoint, like during the pre-consultation for this proposal. It's my understanding that it was always townhouse dwellings or row housing that was proposed. Thank you.
Thank you for the response. Are there any other questions from the members of council regarding this matter? Well, in that case, then we have the motion before us as appended to our agendas. So at this point, do we have a mover and a seconder for this particular project? Moved by Deputy Mayor Smyber and seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? Any opposed? All right. I believe that motion carries. No, I have to vote. I do understand the need for increased density in our smaller villages. And going with what's currently before us in terms of legislation, in the overall scheme of things, it seems an appropriate use of the particular land, so I would vote in favor of it. So on that basis, a motion carries. Thank you. We move on now to 8.5, contract extension for the Boys and Girls Club Facility License Agreement. Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor. You have before you report number CS 015-23 regarding a contract extension with the Boys and Girls Club of London. Since July of 2022, we have had a trial period agreement with the Boys and Girls Club to offer various youth programs at the Thorndale Lions Community Center and at Thorndale Community Park with no rental charges. The recommended contract extension in this report would extend the agreement for 3 years, followed by the option for 3 additional 1-year extensions if mutually agreed upon. The only other change from the trial agreement is adding in free use of space on PD, professional development days, for youth camps to be offered on those dates. A marked change version of the agreement is attached to this report for your viewing. Extending this contract coincides with 10 recommendations in our updated Community Service and Facility Master Plan, as summarized in the second attachment of this report. This report recommends that report number CS 015-23 be received for information and that Council authorize extending the facility license agreement with the Boys and Girls Club of London until December 31st, 2026, with revisions as outlined within this report. I'm happy to answer any questions that Council may have.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Any questions from the members of Council on this? Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's actually not a question, it's just a comment, but it seems like this agreement is working out quite well in Thorndale. So, I mean, maybe there's an opportunity to expand, but glad to see that they want to come back for that extended period of time.
Yeah, and I would agree. It seems to be going really, really well and something that's Thorndale's needed. So do I have a mover and or were you asking a question or comment?
No, yeah, I would echo Councillor Crockett's comments, and I think it's good to see the addition of the PD days. I got one coming up from daycare, so I know that it does add a burden to a working family. So I think this is a good service to have as a supplement.
Are you willing to move the motion? Okay, so moved by Councillor Heeman and seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? And the motion carries then. Thank you very much. Contract extension, the playroom experiment. So Mr. McDonald again, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. You have before you report number CS 01623 regarding a contract extension with the playroom experiment. At our May 8th meeting earlier this year, Council approved entering into a trial period for Mike Primo to offer his playroom experiment rent-free out of the space known as Smitty's Lounge at the Flight Execs Center. Since then, Mr. Primo has had great success and large crowds for most of the activities and events involving not only youth, but seniors and other groups, and lots of volunteer hours from Lord Dorchester students. At this time, I'm only recommending a 1-year extension on this agreement, simply due to the fact that there will be various new options and considerations for how this program can proceed beyond a year once the renovation project is completed at the Flight Exec Center. Mr. Primo and I have already been discussing that, and he agrees that, he has an appetite for some other opportunities that might present themselves. So that's why the contract is recommended the way it is. A marked change version of the agreement is attached to the report, with the only change being the extension to the end of 2024. Like the Boys and Girls Club agreement extension, this agreement also coincides with most of the same 10 recommendations in our updated community service and facilities master plan. This report recommends that report number CS 01623 be received for information, and that council approve the facility usage agreement extension with Mike Primo to operate his community program, the Playroom Experiment, at the Flight Exec Center as detailed in this report. I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Any questions from members of council? Councillor Lucky.
Just a comment. So I have attended the Playroom Experiment with the youth in my family, and I think it's an amazing service that he brings to this community, and I definitely support it.
Any other comments? Deputy Mayor Smyberg.
Just to add to what Councillor Lockie is saying, it not only is it an opportunity for youth, but also the seniors
Yeah.
to get more involved. And I think that's a win-win for Thames Center.
So Councillor Lucky, are you moving the motion?
I'm moving the motion.
Okay, seconder. Deputy Mayor Smyberg, all in favor? Motion carries. Thanks very much. The next one is the Anderson Drain request for improvement. Mr. Pitt.
Thank you, Mayor. The requesting landowners for this request are looking to develop portions of their lot, which is now being used as an agricultural lot, to an industrial lot. The current location of the Anderson Drain, which was constructed in 1939, is obstructing their proposal. Having the Anderson Drain relocated will allow this development to continue with their design. I'd just like council to note that any stormwater management requirements from this site will be captured under site plan approval, and I'll leave it there for if council has any questions.
Okay, any questions from from council? Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one question. Travis, so the area requesting improvement, will the drain improvements, will it be likely to exceed like past that footprint?
Through Your Worship. Can't 100% answer that question until we have an on-site meeting. It's unlikely we'll be required to go downstream, which would be crossing Donnybrook again. However, there could be some appetite upstream in this location. There are owners upstream of this location that have reached out to me over the years with some concerns, and they may be interested in furthering and extending this project.
Thank you. It's like you were reading my mind. You hit both parts of my secondary question there.
Any other questions or comments from council? All right, then we have a motion as appended to your agenda. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Crockett and seconded by Deputy Mayor Smyberg. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Travis. On to the mayor's report. Over and above the usual routine of county council meetings, committee meetings, there's been a lot on my agenda since the last report. With the help of our new communications coordinator, Shannon Zylstra, I and rotationally other members of council had the opportunity to go out once each week in October to visit some of our local businesses. It was a perfect chance to meet some of our really exceptional business people. I only wish there had been time to add in a few more, and hopefully that will happen next year. And I give thanks to our CAO, Mr. Barrett, too, for helping lead this project. And then once again, we held our second meeting of council in Thorndale on October the 16th. few fewer people came out, but still in all, it was a good opportunity for council to interact with the attendees at the break that we had during the meeting. And we're hoping to do the same thing again in April of 2024. And other than that, we as a council, some of the members of council had the opportunity to go to LDSS for Local Governance Week. It was a learning experience, not only for the students, but for me as well. I recognized, thinking about it after, that I could have done things slightly different. And I'll give some thought to that to see if we can improve that next year. And around that, maybe some other initiatives concerning local governance for young people. And I also want to thank the residents of Thames Centre for coming out to offer their comments regarding the strategic plan. It is important. We had about 5 people who attended here in the chambers in Dorchester, and I lost track of the number in Thorndale, but it was a very good turnout and lots of conversation about not only the strategic plans, but I think a few other things, and had an opportunity to talk to both members of council, because Councillor Heeman was in attendance, I was in attendance, and I think CAO Barrett got peppered with a lot of questions as well. So thanks to the public for all of that. All right. Any unfinished business? No new notices of motion? No new business? So I'll move on. Oops, sorry, I missed you. Councillor Crockett.
Sorry, I just want to bring up that the Festival of Lights is happening this Friday. The festivities are beginning at 5:30. Those will be going on until 8 p.m. and the lights will be turned on at 6:30. We have some of the school choirs joining us, in addition to Swagger, the band. So I hope everyone's able to come on out to the park here in Dorchester. It'll be happening at the pavilion.
Thank you. And it's always nice to walk through the park in the evening with lights on too, extra lights, that is. Yeah, it's great. Okay, moving on to bylaws then. A mover and a seconder that bylaws 105-2023 through 109-2023 be adopted as presented. Councillor Heeman and seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? Okay, that motion carries. The confirmatory bylaw 109-2020. We're good. We don't need that. Good. So I have a tendency to forget. All right. Okay. The meeting schedule then to end the meeting. The next meeting is Monday, November 27th. 2023 at 5 p.m. here in the chambers, followed by Monday, December the 11th at 9 a.m. for the budget meeting. Coffee will be supplied. Monday, December the 11th, 2023 at 5 p.m. is the third meeting. So with that being said, do I have a mover and a seconder to adjourn? Deputy Mayor Smiber and seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And the time for the clerk is 7:05 p.m.